In the 1700s, life wasn't easy. There was violence, disease, pillaging, and rebellion against England. Martha Washington, foremost First Lady. Before becoming Martha Washington, the first First Lady of the United States lost her family, her first husband, and her young children in her early 20s. However, since her husband didn't leave a will, their 17,000 acres of land and their 300 slaves became Martha's, making Martha one of the richest women in all of Virginia. Because money wasn't a problem, Martha was able to marry for love. Meanwhile, George Washington had just returned from the French and Indian War, with a little bit of fame, but to get to the top, he was missing one thing: money, and Martha was the one who caught his eye. There is one love letter that Washington wrote that stands out amongst the others, and this letter wasn't written to Martha, but it was written to another woman when he was engaged to Martha. He avowed that the world has no business to know the object of my love, declared in this manner to you. I want to conceal it. How did George move on with this?
I think that that's something that he kept secret, sort of in his heart, for the rest of his life.
What did George see in Martha other than the wealth?
However, Martha herself was a very strong person. After her first husband died, she took over the plantation, which was substantial. It was approximately 27 square miles of plantation land. And she sort of worked that with her slaves. The slaves worked it for her. She negotiated the sales of the product from that, mostly tobacco, with the British. So she was a very astute business person. She was a very smart person and very powerful in her own right. Perhaps that's part of what George thought was attractive about her as well. Not only was she very pretty and wealthy, but she was very smart and strong. And I think he could see them as a couple going places, which they did.
Was this common at the time? According to Dr. Susan Kern, a professor from the University of William and Mary, of course, there's the famous case of Jefferson and Sally Hemings. Jefferson's arch rival, Alexander Hamilton, had an affair with a married white woman. On the other hand, there is no evidence that George Washington's vice president, John Adams, ever cheated on Abigail. After Martha and George Washington's marriage in 1759, the colonies were getting more and more rebellious. They wanted independence. Since Martha lived in Virginia, she wasn't too exposed to rebellious events like the Boston Tea Party in 1773, but she didn't like that she had to pay taxes to a country that she didn't support anymore. When George was offered to be the leader in the Revolutionary War, Martha knew that it would be risky, and she may not ever see him again. Even though it was difficult for Martha to see her husband leave, she decided to do something good for the war too. Martha Washington decided to create an organization called the Ladies Association to support the troops at Valley Forge. She donated $20,000 to help, and she also helped collect clothing, blankets, and money. Martha Washington invited Martha Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson's wife, to work with her in the Ladies Association to get donations for Valley Forge. They raised $300,000 altogether. At this time, the Washington family was well known, and every step Martha took was dangerous. Even though it was risky, after collecting donations for the troops at war, Martha traveled to Valley Forge, where 12,000 men were suffering from sickness, harsh winter, and lack of food. According to Dr. Cynthia A. Kerner, author and professor at George Mason University, other officers' wives probably followed her example when they came to camp to be with their husbands, and serving testimony from the soldiers suggests that they appreciated the women's presence and their kindness. The colonies finally gained their independence in 1783 with the Paris Peace Treaty. All the sacrifices that she made, all the people that she lost, and all the hard work finally paid off. As the first First Lady of the United States, Martha Washington moved to the Capitol to support her husband. A role that Martha Washington played that gave her some influence was that of hostess during George Washington's presidency. Since he was the first president, they had to decide what sorts of reception and civic rituals were appropriate for someone who was a president, not a king, but who nonetheless wanted to present himself and his country as dignified and respectful, especially to foreign visitors. Martha and George Washington had only one short year together after their retirement. Martha Washington died from a fever in 1802, 3 years after George's death in 1799. Martha Washington appeared on 2 dollar bill designs, one with her husband. She is also the first lady to ever appear on a coin and a postage. Martha Washington set a high bar for first ladies and for all women. Martha Washington did a few things that she did not have to do, and these stand out as iconic. Visiting her husband and soldiers at the battlefields in New York, Morristown, Valley Forge, and other places show her commitment to the American cause. Very few spouses have the opportunity to join their partner during war, which makes Martha Washington stand out even more. She led campaigns to have women contribute to the war effort by sending money, rolling bandages, and gathering other necessities that the new U.S. was not prepared to provide. Over 200 years ago, there was a strong, powerful, and generous woman who worked hard to make a new successful country. Her legacy still lives on today in Michelle Obama and other women who work hard to keep America the way that Martha Washington had hoped it to be in the late 1700s.